The sky split in a straight line over my street. I watched something crawl behind it. I was taking the trash out. It was past 2. Everything was quiet and cold and dumb. I looked up and the stars had this perfect seam cut through them, edge to edge, like somebody drew a ruler across the night and sliced it. It didn't glow. It didn't ripple. It was just there, a dead straight wound. A little brighter than the black around it, and on the far side of it something moved. Slow, joint by joint. Like a centipede, but wrong. As it crawled, the stars along the cut went out one by one, in order, like a line of lights dying as it passed. I lifted my phone, and the camera app stuttered and shut itself. The screen tore into bands, then went flat gray. The porch light dipped. I heard my fridge click off inside, and the whole street got that soft, hollow sound when everything electrical drops at the same time. Across the street, Tom called, "You see that?" "Yeah," I said. It came out thin. I still had the bag in my hand. I stood there with it like a fool. He shaded his eyes and looked up more. The seam twitched along its length, like it felt that. The crawling shape pressed closer. I saw skinny points grab the edge and pull along, like it was using the cut as a track. "Don't look so hard," I said, not sure why I said it. "What the hell is it?" Tom asked. He stepped off his porch. His dog, a lazy old lab, put its head under the rail and whined. I took one step back and another. The feeling hit me then, like when you realize someone is staring at you and you don't know from where. It wasn't the creeping thing. It felt like the seam itself leaned down and lined up with me, like a level. When I blinked, the seam snapped smooth, like it had never been there. The power came back. The porch light brightened. My phone woke up with that dumb hello ringtone. Tom cussed and went back inside. I stood there with my heart beating like a rabbit's and the bag of trash wetting my fingers. I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table and smoked and listened to the house hum and start again like it had to remember how to be normal. I grew up 2 towns over. I wasn't new to night sounds. My dad used to drive garbage trucks and came home at weird hours. I've done nights at the loading dock and eaten a lot of bad vending machine food. None of that felt like this. At 6, I opened my laptop and typed "weird line in sky" and felt stupid. I did highway cams, weather cams. DOT has feeds pointed at the main bridge. I scrubbed through hours. Nothing. I searched forums. People argue about chemtrails like it's still 2009. A guy in Kansas posted a blurry streak from last year. Not straight. I put my phone down and my hands shook. At noon, I walked over and asked Tom about it. He said, "It was a plane. You were wound up." He laughed and rubbed at his jaw. His dog wouldn't come out from under the table. He said the power dipped because everyone had their ACs on and the grid is old. When I turned to go, he said, "You looked pale." I said I didn't sleep. He said to lay off coffee after 8. I set an alarm for 2. At 1:50, I was back on the porch with a jacket. The sky looked clean and normal, full of pinprick stars. I kept glancing at the same place like I could call it up by looking wrong. At 2:13, it opened. Same line, dead straight. It felt like paper torn, but without sound. The crawling shape moved faster. It wasn't a cross, not like a horizon. It was angled above our street, so you could follow it over the rooftops. The stars blinked out along its edge like a zipper being undone, only the teeth were little suns. I raised my phone again. The screen turned to a gray field and the little light sensor up top burned hot against my finger. The phone vibrated like it was banging its head against a wall. I pulled it down and it worked fine, so I put it up again and it locked. Then fine. Then locked. I tried to snap a picture anyway. All I got was a thin white bar against noise. No sense of the crawling thing at all. The porch light dipped again. In the kitchen, the radio woke by itself. I hadn't used the radio in months. It came on to dead air. Pure hiss. In the hiss, something threaded my name. Not shouted. Just tucked in there. Tucked neat. My name, like a breath. Then the station came back. Ads. A guy yelling about tires, like it had dreamt me by mistake. That took the bottom out of my stomach. I walked back into the kitchen and turned the knob off and pulled the plug anyway. The seam was still out there, widening by a hair I didn't want to admit, and the crawling thing kept doing its slow push and drag. I watched it through the screen door and wanted to cry, the way you want to cry when a fever breaks and you realize it could have not. It closed like an eyelid. Again, that feeling like I was sighted down the straight edge of a tool. Then, gone. I started saving links. Weather cams, UFO forums, whatever. I made an account under a stupid name and posted what I saw. Straight, not a trail. Black, past black. Something behind it. Stars go missing. 2 replies called it a hoax. One person told me to stop lying for attention. Then a DM came in from someone with a school email. They said they were a grad student in meteorology over at the state college. They said, "I've seen a linear thing on radar once, not like a storm line, more like a reflection off a seam, which makes no sense. What time did you see it?" 2:13, I typed. Then, because it felt wrong to write it, I wrote, "ish." They wrote back fast. "I can meet tomorrow. I want to bring a camera that isn't a phone. Don't post any more for now, please." We picked a coffee shop by the freeway. I stayed up because I couldn't sleep anyway. Around 4, something started scraping above my ceiling. I have no upstairs neighbor. It's a 1-story ranch. The attic is low and full of blown-in insulation. The first scrape was light, like a branch. I went out and checked the trees. No wind. Nothing touching the roof. The scrape moved. Slow, steady, like a rake pulled across plaster. It made the hair on my arms go up. I turned the porch light on and off and it stopped. I lay on the sofa and watched the hallway and tried not to doze. The radio stayed unplugged. The TV was unplugged too. The only sound was the hum of the fridge and my own breathing and the little groans houses make when the air cools. At noon, I drove to the coffee shop. I got there early and sat near the window. I picked at the seam on the table with my thumbnail until I had a little ball of fake wood. 2 kids studied at the next table, heads bent. Noon stretched to 1. No one came up and said my name. I checked my messages. Nothing. At 1:30 a text came in. A photo. It showed the hill by the old quarry, with a straight cut over it, wider than mine by a lot. The edges were so crisp it made my eyes water looking at it on the screen. The caption said, "It's bigger here." I wrote, "Where are you?" No answer. I called. Straight to voicemail. I walked out into the parking lot and stood by my car and listened. The freeway sounded like far-off surf. A light plane went over, and I flinched and looked up too fast. The sun made me sneeze. I called again. Nothing. I drove back by the quarry and parked on the shoulder. It looked like it always looked. A piece of caution tape flapped. Someone had spray-painted a vulgar joke on the rocks. I felt like I had been stood up on a date I never wanted. I went home and took a shower. The scraping started again as the water hit the curtain. That night at 2:13, the seam opened wider. I didn't need a clock. I felt my skin shift a second before it tore open. I walked out on the lawn. I didn't call Tom. He came out anyway. He had binoculars. He lifted them. "Don't," I said. "Don't what?" he said, the glass already to his eyes. The seam twitched. The crawling shape pressed forward hard, like someone raked its back and it flinched toward us. Stars winked out along its edge in a rush. The binocular lenses caught a little orange streetlight and made 2 dots in the night, and the line seemed to peel toward those dots, and I put my hand on the glasses and pushed them down. He got mad. "Don't touch my stuff," he said. "You saw it," I said. He looked at me then, not at the sky, and he looked scared in the face, but his mouth wanted to say something tough, and while he fought himself, the seam lay quiet. When he shifted to look anyway, I stepped in front of him and his dog barked from behind the door. He called the dog a name he shouldn't, and it went silent. My kitchen TV turned itself on. I heard the pop of old speakers. Dead channel. Then a thin voice in the hiss, like someone whispering through cotton. It said my name. It said it the way my mom used to when she woke me for school. The way no one else has said it in years, with that long drag in the middle. I felt my throat close. Tom said, "What the hell is that? You have your stuff on timers?" He tried to push past and I held him by the shoulders. Stupid move from a skinny guy on a big man. He didn't hit me. He froze. We were 2 children under something we didn't understand. The seam hung over us like a spirit level. The crawling thing tested the edge, inch by inch. He went inside without a word, carrying his binoculars like a baby. I stood there and blinked, and the line closed. I listened for the scraping. It didn't come. The TV hissed for another second, then showed a weather girl smiling like nothing was wrong. The student never texted again. I called the number twice a day for 2 days. On the 3rd, I got a busy signal, then a carrier message that the number was not in service. I searched their name. Their school email was there in a comment thread, like they had posted about a storm chase last spring. I clicked it. The account came up blank. I clicked cached versions and got that weird empty feeling when pages load and then vanish as you watch. Later that week, there was a 3-line item in the paper. A student from out of town missed class. Family notified. I started to think I was making all of it up, just so I could have a thing that was mine. That scared me worse than the seam. I dug through a box in the hall closet. Kids' stuff. Old report cards. A sheet with stickers from my dentist. Under the clutter, there was a drawing on cheap paper. A house, a lopsided tree, a car with square wheels. The sky was blue crayon until I ran out of blue and switched to pencil. Across the sky, a straight line, a ruler line. Over the line, I drew little hands. Under it, I drew me, a stick with hair, pointing up. My mom had written my name on it, and the year, in her nice school teacher letters, I could never copy. I sat on the floor with that in my lap and remembered laying in the grass as a kid with my brother, both of us sticky from popsicles, looking at a line across the sky that made no sense. I remembered trying to tell Mom and her saying not to talk about it at dinner. I was 6. I drew what I saw. The paper was still here. The 4th night I tried to call the police. I told the woman who answered that something weird was over my street at 2:13 every night, and I knew how it sounded when I was saying it. She told me to call when it was happening. I told her it was happening at 2:13. She said again, "Call when it happens." I told her my name. She asked for my address and my date of birth, and I gave them. I hung up and felt like I had told a stranger my secrets, and she had put them in a drawer. I emailed the local news. They sent me an auto reply. "Thanks for your tip about a light in the sky." I answered, "Not lights. A line." They didn't write back. The fifth night, animals hid. The alley cats didn't fight. The possums didn't skitter. Even the bugs kept quiet. The scraping started at 1 and didn't stop. It went from the kitchen ceiling to the hall, then to the bedroom, slow and patient. I got a step stool and pushed up a square of ceiling in the hall and looked into the attic. It was a flat plane of gray dust and trusses, and that smell of heat that has nowhere to go. No prints. No tracks. While I had my head up there, the scrape moved above me and I pulled down on reflex, and the square clipped my fingers and I swore. No blood, just crushed skin. I laughed like an idiot in my empty house. At 2:12, I stood in the middle of my yard so I could see the whole run of it. The seam opened, bigger than before. Tom's porch light was off. Either he was asleep or he was hiding too. The cut ran from over the old sycamore to above the laundromat. The crawling thing reached. For the first time it reached. A piece of it, thin and blacker than the rest, stuck out past the edge and scraped nothing. It had hooks. It left a line in the air for a heartbeat, like a scratch on film. It reacted when I looked. I proved it. If I looked full on, it thickened. If I glanced away, it held. When I put my hand up so I was looking at my hand, it went quiet. When I lowered my hand, it pressed forward as if my pupils were a lever. "Okay," I said out loud. My voice didn't sound like me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A DM from the student came in, time-stamped 2 weeks ago, but I only got it then. Don't look. It wants looking. Attached was another photo of that straight cut. Huge. Horizon to horizon. Then a last line. I think it wants eyes. The seam widened again. People in the street started to come out, because lights along the whole block dipped, and you don't sleep through that. Lights kill quiet. A guy 2 doors down opened his door and his TV blared, loud, then popped to dead air. The hiss carried and my name slid in it, like someone under a blanket set it into a microphone. He looked up by reflex. The scene flexed. It clicked then. How you stop a thing that eats attention. You stop feeding it. I ran into the house. I grabbed my phone and held the power button until it asked me if I wanted to shut down. Then I stabbed it off. I opened every app and deleted everything I had posted. My stupid username. The thread on the forum. Gone. I took the laptop and yanked the network cable from the wall. I took the coax and twisted it until it broke and the little copper core bent my fingertip. I threw the modem in the sink. The radio was already unplugged. I pulled its cable and wrapped it around the body and stuffed it in the pantry like a dead animal. Outside, someone said, "What is that?" And a kid said, "Mom?" And the seam pushed, feeling for the voice. I ran to the breaker panel by the water heater and flipped the main. My house went dark. The neighbors stayed bright. That would have to do. I grabbed a hoodie and ran barefoot across the gravel to Tom's. I pounded the door so hard my knuckles hurt. He opened it and stared at me like I was a ghost. "Turn off your lights," I said. "Don't look. Don't let anyone look." He saw my face, and that was enough. He reached for the switch, and everything in his house went out. The dog huffed, and his wife yelled something like, "Hey!" from the bedroom. "Don't open the curtains," I said. "Promise." He nodded. Behind us, a guy up the street stepped out with his phone up. I shouted, "No, but he kept walking into the middle of the road and pointed the camera at the line like he was at a parade. It got wide, fast. The crawling thing rolled and reached, and a black feeler grazed the phone and it went dead in his hand. He stared at it, shocked, like phones don't do that, and then looked up. It grabbed, not like a hand from above. It was like 2 points of air pinched, clean, and his sleeve shredded from wrist to shoulder. His skin went red in a stripe and something like frost formed on the hair of his arm. He yelled, not loud, like someone had stepped on a nail. He stumbled back and I ran and shoved him toward his door. He stared at me instead of the sky. I said, "Go. Don't look." He went, making that sound people make when they're trying to be quiet while hurting. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt stupid and tired. More doors opened. I needed them shut. I went down the line, pounding on wood, saying, "Power company. Don't look outside. Close your curtains. There's a transformer out." It was a lie, but it sounded boring enough that people obeyed. Boring saves lives. I learned that night. Once the street went mostly dark, it quieted. It still hung there, beating like it had a pulse it didn't understand yet. I stood in the middle of the road under it, and I kept my eyes on the asphalt. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I heard the scrape above my ceiling, even here, like it had stretched and found me wherever I walked. I heard the TV in my house turn itself on to hiss, even with no power, because the sound came anyway. In that hiss, my own name. Over and over, easy as breathing. I wanted to look up so bad my neck hurt. I tipped my head down farther. I watched ants carry something small across the pitted street, and I thought, I can do this. I can be dumber than an ant. I can carry my bit and not look up. It reached down to me. I didn't see it, but I felt it on my scalp, cold and dry like the backside of a coin. Hooks. They pricked and slid in a little and dragged. I tasted metal. Blood ran warm put of my hair and down my left ear and into my collar. The urge to look was a reflex, like sneezing. I clenched my teeth until my jaw popped. I stood there and cried without making any sound at all. "Come on," I said. Not to it. To myself. It scraped across my head and my shoulders and my back. It searched for my eyes with that light prickling touch, and I kept them on the ground. The hiss said my name soft, then louder. The scrape above my ceiling followed, tracking, angry that my house was dark and empty. It moved over to my neighbor's roof, and Tom didn't look, and neither did his wife, and the dog didn't bark. It crossed the street to the guy with the torn sleeve. His wife sobbed behind their door. It scraped there too, and nothing fed it. Something changed in the sound of the night. It took me a second to hear it. The seam made a sound like wind in a straw when a drink is almost gone. A thin, failing rush. It flexed, angry, and the hooks bit my skin hard, and then it loosened. It slid back. I let out a breath that felt like it had been stuck for days. I lifted my head an inch by inch. The line was thinner. There were stars where there weren't stars a minute before. The crawling thing pulled away. It didn't feel defeated. It felt patient. It felt like a hand that had tried a latch and learned the give of it. I went inside and shut my door and leaned against it. My head was sticky. I washed it at the sink and flinched when the water hit the raw parts. In the mirror, I saw shallow lines across my scalp, even and neat, like I had slept on a grate. Little beads of red. Not deep. Not enough to show anyone who didn't want to see. I bandaged them badly and laughed again, that hard laugh people do when they're done crying. I picked up my phone. I held it to my ear like I was going to call someone and be believed. Then I set it down in the sink next to the modem and the radio, and I hit them all with a hammer. It felt good. It felt like killing roaches. Bits of plastic popped. A ribbon cable came loose like a wet tongue. I threw the pieces in a grocery bag and tied it in a knot so tight my knuckles went white. I slept an hour at dawn. The scraping didn't come back. When I woke, the world had regular weight again. Tom came over later with coffee. He looked at my head and said, "Jesus, what was that?" "Wind," I said. He didn't like the lie. He accepted it anyway. He owns a car shop. He knows about lies that help. I went through my house and stripped it. No TV. No radio. No router. No smart plugs. At night, I threw the breaker every time. The house made that vacuum-sealed silence, and I sat in it and waited for 2:13. Sometimes, nothing happened. Sometimes the scraping came and went. Sometimes the line opened thin and sulked there, because I didn't look, and I didn't let anyone else look for long. It pushed at my edges and took what little it could. I sat and gave it nothing. I found the student's name once more in a list of missing. It was 3 lines on a local site. The family asked for privacy. There was one comment: prayers. I printed the page and put it in the same closet as my drawing. I looked at both for a while and felt like I was holding onto a thread that had been in my hand since I was 6 and I didn't know it. I'm telling you this because you asked why I don't have a TV. Why I keep the breaker off at night. Why I flinch when radios pop on, even in stores. You think it's weird? It is. I know what it sounds like. I know what attention does. That seam wanted eyes and names and pictures. It wanted to take the line between us and make it its own. The last time it opened big, over my street, I had a choice to show everyone, to stream it, to make it the news, to blow it wide. I could have been right in a way that ruins everything. I chose to break what I had and shut what I could and keep it small. I let it have me instead. It got a little. It starved anyway. If you see a straight line in the dark where there isn't one, do not look close. Lights off. Curtains shut. Don't say your name out loud. Don't feed it. It remembers who feeds it. It knows mine. That's enough. I hope you enjoyed that one. Sometimes these stories stay with you longer than you expect. If you'd like to hear more, subscribe for the next night's story. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe watch another before the lights go out. See you in the next one.